All right, welcome to Peeling Syd Barrett. This will be episode 7. And for this episode, what I'd like to cover, or recover actually, is the song Arnold Layne. And that's because it's a pretty deep topic, but also just because I forgot to include a video that's pretty important for it. And it's the second video. We went pretty in depth on the other video. But the second video also includes Syd Barrett, and it's by HDPINKFLoyd. And I believe the title is Syd Barrett / Pink Floyd Arnold Layne, something along those lines. I'll post it with the video. One of the things I like to do before I start is kind of call out some mistakes or corrections or notes from previous episodes. And something that I'd like to kind of point out is that, of course, I'm doing this on the fly. I'm just talking through things as I can consider them. And I want to do it organically so that it feels natural to me. And so sometimes there's going to be long pauses, or I'm going to have mannerisms which might be distracting, and I apologize for that. But I think it's worthwhile to do it that way so that it conveys a level of, I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's almost like it's just a flow of thought, and it's as honest a thought process as I can provide concerning these topics. That's my goal. So that's why I want to do it that way. So let's go ahead and, I guess, take a look at the video. This is going to be a short one. I want this to be a kind of a relatively short one. So go ahead and take a look at the video and make notes of things that kind of stand out to you. And then come on back, and we'll be at about 2 minutes. And we'll kind of run through some thoughts about what we may have noticed. Okay, hopefully you got a chance to look through that video. If you remember, the previous Arnold Layne video had the guys with mannequins on the beach kind of joking around and stuff. And in this video, they're kind of messing around in like almost like a courtyard of a church and some other things. So it opens up with the guys, Roger Waters and Roger Syd Barrett, kind of struggling. And as they're doing that, Nick Mason is kind of marching around them in circles to the beat, which makes sense. He's the drummer, so he's kind of keeping time to their fight. And Nick Mason, or Rick Wright, is just kind of looking up into the sun, maybe trying to keep his head above it all. I don't know. I don't know necessarily that there's something symbolically going on there, or if they're just kind of calling out the interaction of the band, like Rick Wright's kind of doing his own thing, and Nick Mason is just kind of trying to keep time. And Roger Waters and Syd Barrett are arguing and fighting with one another about what they want to do. Maybe that's how it was the whole time. Who knows? But that's one thing that you could take away from it. Knowing that Roger Barrett was an artist and the content of the song Arnold Layne, this could be a representation of Two Figures or The Wrestlers by Francis Bacon. I don't know. It's just an idea. I kind of doubt that. I don't see too many similarities between the painting and what's going on in the video, and you would think that if that was going to be the case, then there would be more similarities. And of course, if Syd Barrett didn't want that connection to be made, then that's one way to hide it, is by just kind of acting it out and not really showing too many similarities. There is a girl dancing in different sections of the video, and that's not related directly to it. I believe that's from a documentary which was put together called like Tonight Let's All Make Love in London or something. That's just by memory, and I'm not going to look it up, but you can check it out. And basically it was a documentary about London in the 60s, and it included some footage of Syd Barrett with Pink Floyd, which is pretty rare now. I want to point out something that stands out. There's like two scenes in that really stand out to me. One of them is Syd Barrett kind of standing in the background, and there's the three other members are laying on the ground. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit more. But for now, let's just point out that there are certain things that happen or are relayed, and they're shocking in a way because they're not related to the rest of the material. They don't make sense, and because of that, they grab your attention. And that is one of the things that is in there that is doing that. And it's kind of a method to grab people and make them say, what's really going on there? We discussed that previously with the idea of just staring blankly at someone, staring, and that kind of odd mannerism that is repulsive to people and simultaneously drawing them in. So that is a technique that you can use in video and art and other things to make people say, that's not normal, that's not natural, what is going on? And it ties in with a lot of different instincts that people have, like survival, danger instincts, other things. The other thing that I want to point out is towards the end of the song, Mason and Wright have their backs to Roger Waters, who's in a dark cloak, and Syd Barrett is kneeling with his head at about waist level, which is a suggestive position to be in. And then the camera kind of zooms in to Roger Waters' face, and he's making some very subtle, odd expressions of his face, which is again quite suggestive, which is somewhat in line with the nature of the song. And then later on, Mr. Waters opens the black cloak, and he's wearing all these white clothes underneath, or like a white suit. And there's a church in the background, so perhaps this is some form of religious or church statement. I'm not entirely certain. One thing I would like to point out now is that when I see, going back to the people laying down, when I first saw that, I thought to myself, that's very odd. That reminds me of quite a few things. So those things are tied up in a number of paintings, and I'm going to run through them really quick, and also in a possible movie. So I want to discuss all those, and you can kind of decide if you think there's any connection or not. Now, the first one that I kind of want to point out is a painting by Theodore Géricault called Raft of the Medusa. And in this painting, which is kind of a recollection of shipwreck, and with a bunch of people that are starving and dehydrated and dying, and they're waving to a ship that's way far away, this was apparently a painting made after a historical event. And I recall this painting because of the figures laying down in the foreground that are in various poses, but the leg poses and the arm poses, in my opinion, they don't really match well enough, but it is somewhat reminiscent of that, so I thought maybe it's related to that. Another painting that it somewhat reminds me of is a painting by Matthias Grunewald entitled The Resurrection, in which there are figures kind of laying down. And if you notice, the very bottom, I guess he's a knight or a warrior of some kind, has his legs in like the one leg bent and one leg straight position that's represented in the video itself. Now there is a figure in the center, and that figure is the resurrected Christ. And if you believe there's a church in the background behind Roger Waters, if you believe that there's some kind of a religious element going on here, the comparison would be that somehow, obviously, Mr. Barrett is comparing himself to Christ in some way. It's hard to know. There is another set of paintings. Before we move on from that resurrection painting, I would like to point out that it's possible that more than one of these is related. There's no way of knowing if any of them are related or not. There are a couple paintings that are important, and I'm going to relay both of them. So the first one is a painting by Francisco Goya, and that one is entitled, I think, The Shipwreck or Shipwrecked, which is a bunch of people laying around on the beach with a woman in a white top who's kind of waving. And there we have the white top, and we have a bunch of people laying down on the ground. But and quite interestingly to me, I will point out that there's a dark cloud above all of them. And so you almost get the sensation that those people are asking why, why did this dark cloud happen to us? And I guess you can infer that that might be a reason why someone would draw on this painting if they felt some connection to that painting. There's one more painting that I'll point to that may fit, and it's called The Executions, which is another Goya painting, and it shows people who have been executed and Napoleonic French soldiers killing Spaniards. And the central figure is a man dressed in white, and if you can see in the background, you can see a church bell tower. So perhaps this is simply a reference to war of some kind, or the nature of war. Killing people, punishing them, I guess, for insurrection of some kind. Recognize, of course, that the Napoleonic wars in Spain were wars of oppression. As far as the Spanish people were concerned, they had a failed monarchy, and Napoleon felt entitled to come in and establish his empire. And obviously, that was a very long struggle. It was the Spanish theater of the Napoleonic War was just brutal, and it was quite a long battle for them. It never really was resolved. So let's move on to another thing that maybe you'll have to decide if you think those are any related or not. I have no idea. Personally, I like the last Goya painting with the church in the background, but that's just because I can draw the most correlations, and that's the closest to the painting that I can get, closest to the video of the song within a painting that I can get. Now, I do want to point out a song or a video that might be related to the song, and that video is an old movie, very famous, that most people don't know anymore, and they won't recognize it and have never watched it. It's a very long, wasteful, incredibly expensive movie to make, which would have an impact on people who are knowledgeable about film and the art of the film industry. And that film is titled Intolerance by W.D. Griffith. And there is a scene in there where, and the idea of this movie, Intolerance, is basically that all these people are suffering because of the intolerance of their love. So love, or the idea of a simple life of love, is constantly being attacked by all these kind of exterior malicious movements, I guess, malicious people and malicious organizations that either think that they're going to make life better for you instead of letting you live your life, or simply are at war, or want to imprison one another, or are interested in power and don't care if other people are going to suffer so that they can attain and control power, etc. So that's kind of the idea behind Intolerance. Anyway, about an hour and 57 minutes in, an hour and 55, you can start watching, and you'll see that there is a portion of this movie that includes the Palace of Babylon, and they're celebrating an initial victory over the Persians, and they had some almost like a bacchanalic orgy of some kind, and there's all these people laid out, and you can see that the legs of some of the people laying down in the front very much match the leg shapes that are being used in Arnold Layne. Also, not much longer after that, there are two priestesses that are dressed in black that remove their outer robes and they're white underneath. So perhaps that's related. I really don't know. But those are possible artistic influences. There are a few of them that have enough correlations to the video Arnold Layne that it might make you wonder if perhaps whoever put that together, and I'll suggest that it was Mr. Barrett, was considering those things when he made that video. So he may have been considering paintings, he may have been considering something entirely different, he may not have been considering anything at all, And he may have been considering the movie Intolerance, which is interesting because we know that they would often show some films at some of their shows, and Intolerance is old enough that it's a silent film. So in a way, it actually would make more sense if you're playing music to show silent films, because those silent films are intended to be played without being heard, and the band could just play music to match or just do their own thing or whatever. So the last thing I want to do real quick is run through some of where we're at, or where I'm at with my notes. So here are some of the themes that I've noted, and I moved around some of the word use and themes so that they make a little bit more sense to me. But the themes currently run male-female inversion, sexual metaphor innuendo, king and queen royalty, animal metaphors, dismissive misogyny, torn attractions, changing or religious esoteric beliefs, alienation or separation, drug use references, color references, flying as it relates to other ideas, hiding sorrow or hidden sorrow that's unstated, and the nature of suns and stars. For music styles for him, I have, the nature of his odd rhythms, and that's lyrically. The music itself has pretty standard rhythm, but often Mr. Barrett has an odd lyrical rhythm tied to it. A discordant harmony, which is often high, and a lot of times you can hear Syd Barrett kind of wailing over the rest of the band. And the nature of two-note introductory, often a slide. Interesting word uses. I have colors that are various colors that he's referencing while he's putting together lyrics. He references mirrors, he references screaming, sun, sunshine, moonshine, the use of cat for a person. He references flying, and not necessarily flying as in flying, but as a metaphor of kinds. He pairs sorrow with tomorrow, ground with gown, river with forever, and he also uses some Cockney rhyming slang. Now, as I said, this is kind of a short video. The next one I want to put together is about the scarecrow, and that's going to be a long one. So I guess this is good enough for today. I'm going to get my energy up for that one because that one's going to be long. Thanks for checking in. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later.